Hey, welcome back to another episode of the JavaScript Jabber podcast. This week on our panel, we have AJ O'Neill.
Yo, coming at you live from Stromboli.
Yeah, I timed that well. I saw you were chewing food. But anyway, I'm Charles Max Wood from Top End Devs. And this week we have two special guests. We have, how do you say it, Joao?
Yeah, Joao.
Anywhere close?
You can call me Victor. It's easier, I think.
Okay. Do you want to just do a quick introduction? Who you are, what you do?
Sure. I work full-time as an AI engineer in Brazil in an innovation lab here. And I also do freelancing at Code Mentor. And I have helped people from all the world, from Kazakhstan to Canada, US, Europe. And there I met Manny, and we established a partnership there.
Awesome. Yeah, so you mentioned Manny. Manny is our other guest. Manny, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, my name is Manny. I live in Dallas, Texas. I'm a full-stack JavaScript developer working with React on an internal cloud platform for a bank. Been there about 5 years now. Guess sort of like mid-level. I think that's what Joao was describing me as. And I actively been seeking mentorship for a while. I had a very difficult time finding it until I actually got on Code Mentor and found Joao.
Okay. So, yeah, we're talking about, I should set the stage, I guess. We're talking about mentorship and friendship and, how that helps personal growth and things like that is kind of the overall idea that at least was put forward, when Manny and Joao or Vitor, sorry, I'm going to mess that up the whole time. Anyway, so, that was the idea that we got to while, and why we set up this episode is because this is an area that I guess we focus a lot on the technology, and I think this is an important area. So, yeah, I'd love to just kind of get the story. I love hearing stories. So, Manny, maybe you should start out and just kind of tell us, okay, this is where I was at. This is what I was looking for. This is how I found Code Mentor. And then, how you kind of moved into this, mentorship relationship.
Sure. Yeah. So I, at 35, which is back like in 2015 to give away my age, I decided I was going to change my career. I know. Decided I would change my career.
You're fine.
I know. It's all good. But so I decided I was going to change my career, which at that stage, like I had like no background in programming other than some like HTML stuff I had learned while I was a copywriter. But I had an interest in all the things that I was told not to touch, like CSS and JavaScript. And I wanted a better job with, more fulfilling and that would like challenge me a little bit more intellectually. So I went to I don't know if you'd call it a boot camp. It was like a 9-month kind of like introduction to JavaScript. And I learned probably like 10% of what I needed to know there to be successful. So I get out of there. I don't know hardly anything. And I have to, from that point, actually start making up all the things I need to know to be able to get myself into a job after 35. So I did a lot of self-study, put myself through like a lot of just sort of like rigorous, hard lessons of like working for free, although I don't recommend that, doing internships to be able to get the experience that I needed in order to be able to build things. So in doing that, I learned a lot about how to manipulate data, how to think about state on the front end, mobile applications. I learned a lot from work in solving business problems in like critical situations where I had like intense pressure on me to do so, which was good. But during that process, I really like neglected like learning like computer science stuff.
Mm-hmm.
One, probably because I was intimidated by it. And two, I didn't necessarily need it to get a job. And three, just like the time allotment that I had, versus what I could learn versus what I had time to do. So fast forward in my current role now for 5 years, really like my job, like the people I work with. I'm well respected. I have good time off. Like I'm off today for Labor Day. So I really like where I'm at, but I've started feeling like I've been getting too comfortable. And with a lot of the turmoil in the economy, I'm like, okay, well, what would happen if I had to go back out there and interview again? Like, where am I at? Like, is the experience that I have building things good enough? So I was like, I want to learn this stuff, but I don't want to do it alone because I need some motivation. And I know that if I just start by myself, like I'll get sidetracked by things. So I went on Code Mentor and looked for a mentor and found Joao.
Cool. So what's the process? You get into Code Mentor. Yeah. I mean, do they just match you up based on skills, or
No.
you kind of get in and say, hey, this is what I want? Or
Kind of like, I mean, all right, so I think if I remember correctly, you just put like a basic feeler out there, like with the message, like, hey, this is where I'm at in my career. This is what I'm looking for. This is my time zone. And then within like 5 minutes, you get inundated with like 5,000 people, like trying to get you to sign up with them. And obviously, they're looking for business. They're looking to mentor. So you have a lot of stuff to filter through. So I actually found someone before Joao, or around the same time, and I met with him, and like, the first thing he did was like started taking me through like merge sort. I was like, whoa, back out, dude. I'm looking for like long-term mentorship here. We haven't even started talking about a raise yet. Why are we getting in? Like, it just felt like he wasn't like targeted towards me. Now I had a message from Joao that said, hey, let's meet. I want to find out if we can work together. And that kind of stood out to me. And plus he was Brazilian, and my dad had lived down there, and
right.
We just made the connection. We had like an initial meeting, and from there, I think it took some time to figure out if we were going to work together, and then we decided to, and we've been going at it since the beginning of April.
Cool. So,
I got lucky. I got really lucky.
Right. So, Joao, when you're looking at people that you can help, right? Because it's a two-way street, right? So if you're looking at people you can help, how do you decide? Okay, Manny looks like somebody I can help versus maybe, I'm not going to pitch this person because I don't know if I've got what they need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. That's why I said to him that we should first meet and talk about his goals, his struggles, and understand him, listen actively, and see if my skills and the way that I teach would help him. Because I believe that from the standpoint from the mentee and also from the mentor, we have to deliver an excellent service, right? And yeah, so I also interview him as a mentor.
Gotcha. So let me back up for a minute, because I'm looking at this and looking at kind of the relationship and the process. And AJ, feel free to jump in anytime you want. But what made you decide that you wanted to do this kind of mentorship, right? How did you get into the Code Mentor arena?
You mean me or Manny?
Yeah, you.
I freelanced for some ad tech startups, and I always loved to help people from as early as I remember. I loved to help colleagues in class and school, and it's just a personal trait. It's something that I have passion about, and I enjoy doing this. So it's aligned with my values, my beliefs. So when I do this, I'm happy. When I'm helping someone, teaching someone, and making someone progress and accomplish goals, I feel that when many accomplish goals, it's like I am also accomplishing the goals. I celebrate with him. When he he's trying to learn a new pattern in coding, and I give him like an exercise, some challenge, and I see that he understood and started to generalize to new problems. That's an important component variable to assess learning. If you can generalize to new problems, it's not that you memorize it. It's like in AI, I like to do this intersection when I'm explaining things because of my background. And in AI, if your model overfit, like the data,
Right.
he can't generalize. He didn't learn. It didn't learn. And the same is for us. If we can generalize to new problems, then you can feel more confident that learning happened. And many we monitor. So as we were talking before, some of the components of a great mentorship. One of them is to monitor progress. So you have to have some kind of system to monitor progress. So we have a system that we record the data. So I know which exercise he found hard, easy, medium hard, and I can this way set personalized lessons for him and exercise, and this way he can progress in a more accelerated pace.
Gotcha. And just to give people a little bit, so you mentioned like in AI overfitting data. Effectively, the idea behind overfitting, if you're not familiar with the term, is that your results too closely match to your training set to the point where if you try and run other things through it, right? Because you train it so that you can give stuff that it hasn't seen before and it does the right thing. If it overfits, it means it fits the training data when you look at the results on the training data, but it doesn't work well with things outside the training set. And so,
exactly,
what
yes.
what Vitor is talking about is he's saying, we want to teach people like Manny or other people that he's mentoring concepts that they can use outside of the couple of examples or exercises that he's giving him. Yes. Did I state that properly?
Yes, very well. And one of the great things also that I think helps in learning for us humans is there is this word that's metacognition, and I try to make, although Manny maybe doesn't know that he's doing metacognition, but he's doing, because metacognition is thinking about your own thought process. So this also helps you get better at coding. So how do you think? Reflect on how you think, how you solve things. What's your thought process to solve a problem?
Did you say meditation? What was the word?
Metacognition.
Metacognition.
Yes.
Metacognition. Okay.
Thinking about how you think.
Exactly. Meta is thinking about your own thinking. Exactly, Max.
Yep. Yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up too. And then I'm going to ask Manny a question because I've been reading. So I've been doing this mental toughness program called 75 Hard, and one of the things you have to do is read 10 pages out of a book every day. And the book I've been reading is Awaken the Giant Within, and it's kind of the same idea where he talks a lot more about like changing your state, but you do a lot of the metacognition type things where you're saying, I'm thinking this and I need to change it to that, right? And so you're paying attention to what makes you do what you do. Manny, I'm kind of curious. Vitor's talked about a bunch of different things, like what you want to accomplish and, kind of setting goals and keeping track of your progress, and then kind of this metacognition. How have these things worked for you? Like, which parts really stand out?
So I would say that the first thing that really stands out to me is the fact that we have a way to track progress. So generally, if you try to learn something on your own, you can hold yourself accountable, but you don't really have anyone outside of yourself that can observe you and really give you the proper feedback that you need, because you're stuck inside yourself. So from the very beginning, we established a very, I guess kind of agile way to think about the work that we're doing, in terms that we share progress every day and get feedback every day. And part of that is being able to share like where I get stuck in my thinking. And I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, Joao, but like from the notes that I take and what I write, I think you're able to get like somewhat of an idea of like where I get stuck and where my thought process is. And it goes beyond just like, oh, how, I don't understand this concept. It's more about like, what am I thinking about myself and my ability to succeed throughout this? So a lot of things come down to like internal dialogue and pushing through hard things. I think I kind of went off track on your question. I apologize about that, but it's just something that came to my mind.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Manny, I think, touched in a great point as you were talking, Max, at the beginning of the show, that coding actually, there's more about coding than only coding, because we are affective, emotional beings. Sometimes the problem is not so much at the coding part of the process, but in beliefs, sometimes your self-talk is not good. So you say, oh, I can't solve this, it's too hard. And it's also important for problem solving, your own self-talk. And you create limiting beliefs. And I think in your book, I'm not sure, but probably it will touch in these topics about your own self-talk, what is limiting you in fulfilling your whole potential. And this is also something that I think a great mentorship should do, is to fulfill your whole potential. Because I truly believe that everybody has a potential and should be filled, should put the, like third max on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff that I struggled with initially, that having the structure of the mentorship has helped me with is just like the belief that I can do it, right? Like I'm, kind of past the point where a lot of people I think are learning new things. Like I said, I'm pretty comfortable where I'm at. Like I don't feel like an immense threat to my job. Like I've been there a while, but was uncomfortable with kind of being too comfortable. And going through this, learning like computer science, algorithms, data structures, it's not easy. Like especially, it's been a long time since I was in college taking a math class. So, I've had a big thing hanging over my head for a long time that probably led to my avoidance of things that basically said, yeah, you're not smart enough to do this, right? I mean, that's a thought that I have, that comes up in the back of my head a lot. And through the mentorship process, like I think that's been one of the main things that we've come to. I don't sit around beating myself up all day, but there are times when I'll get like a super hard problem and then I'll see the answer. I'm like, man, I never would have come up with that on my own. And like we kind of discussed like that feeling of going through that, because that's a place where a lot of people, when you start to feel uncomfortable, hit those walls, and people quit. And I think that that's probably the reason that a lot of people don't succeed, is like when they get there and it feels bad, they take that as a sign like that they're not capable, when actually that's a sign that you're actually learning. And that's when you push through harder.
So I have some questions about this, because I have the controversial opinion that not everybody can code, that it's not something that you can just work hard at and be good at. I kind of believe more in the philosophy that you could spend your whole life investing in something that you're not talented at, invest all of your skill where you have no talent, and you'll become mediocre. But if you invest your skill where you have talent, you can become great. And so I'm of the opinion that not everybody should learn to code, because not everyone is talented in that area. But I'm curious to whether or not, like, I discovered it early and I was talented in it. Like the first few programs I wrote, no, I didn't really understand it. I struggled, but I don't know, after I had probably less than 100 hours programming, I was like, okay, I get this. I understand what this is about. And I made a lot of poor choices because I didn't have the skill and I didn't have the wisdom, but I had a knack for it. And so I'm curious, with your experience, do you feel like you're someone who has a knack for it or not? Do you feel like you're someone who is going to become great at it or not? And like what are your some of thoughts around that?
So I'm like historically, like in my life, like pretty hard on myself, where I don't really think I can do anything. So that sort of like clouds over just about everything that I do, right? The one thing that led me to think that I possibly could do it was the fact that when I was in college, I learned how to play jazz music, and that was really hard.
That sounds
And
fun.
it was like it was kind of similar to programming in that like you first have to like learn like the language, right? And then you have to start learning how to play music. And then like the challenging part is you're taking language and you're taking music that might have like some structure, but you're being asked to create something completely new on the spot, right? So I've been able to sort of relate that to programming and the fact that like you have to kind of grind through like a lot of like, at least for me, like with tougher things, it's getting like used to the concepts and stuff. But over time, as I'm not wasn't struggling with the language so much, and I was able to start to create things, that's when I started to have the belief that I could do it. When I was able to have somebody give me an idea, and then I've never seen what they want to do. I don't have any code written about it, but I can create that idea, So that helped give me the belief that I could do it. Whether I'm great or not, I let other people make that judgment. And generally it's the people who pay me money, right? That's how I go. And if they think I am, then that's good enough for me.
That's a great way to go about it for sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, so, I have fun. You know what? Here's the deal. When I was first learning and it was hard, like there were obviously times I'm like, man, am I really cut out for this? But the one thing that I knew was that when I solved a problem, it made me feel good and I had a lot of fun and I wanted to keep doing it. So I was like, well, I kind of like this and maybe I suck, but whatever, I'm going to keep doing it. So, and was able to kind of, launch that into doing some pretty cool things, after I kind of got my feet on the ground.
The thing that you said about music, it is astonishing to me. I noticed this connection very early on. In fact, my high school technology teacher had his degree in music, and so many of the programmers that I meet have some sort of musical talent as well. So it's very interesting. I mean, maybe it's just because lots of people have music talent, period. But I've met more musicians that are programmers than, say, chefs that are programmers, or, like it seems to be tightly correlated.
Yeah.
And also something that I like that you're saying is that you pushed through it and you felt a sense of satisfaction and some sort of sense of fun. I see a lot of people that are the people that I believe ought to try to find something else where they have a talent that's going to give them that reward, but they want to like push through just for the money. And it doesn't look like I don't know that I've heard a success story from somebody who pushed through because they were determined to make the money. Maybe I don't know. Maybe
I never have. I never have, and I think that would be a pretty miserable life because you'd wind up doing something that you hate to do every day, and that's and that's challenging, right? Like I can't see. I'm sure there's people out there like that who could just shut their mind off and just do whatever. But for me, I have to have fun at my job, and I have to enjoy what I'm doing and enjoy the people around doing, or I'll go do something else.
Well, I've met people that they didn't hate programming; they just didn't love it the way that I love it. And so, and so they wind up being passable programmers, right? They can get the stuff done. They can write decently maintainable code, but they never become great at it. And I think that there are different aspects to this as far as, AJ's talking about, maybe natural talent or, bent toward it. But I also think there's a certain amount of passion and other things that go into it as well. I want to change gears just a little bit because you guys talked about some stuff that it sounds like kind of nuts and bolts stuff that I think is important to kind of understand. And I don't know if this process works for everybody, but you're talking about kind of checking in on a regular basis. Like, how do you keep track of what you're working on, as far as, if Joao gives you an exercise to do, or if you're coming up with some goal for something you want to learn or do, like what's your system for this back and forth? So it's okay, this is what I want. Okay, this is how we're going to get you there, and this is how I'm going to check in on it. Do you understand what I'm?
Yeah, I mean, I could tell you straight up, we have a Trello Kanban board that we just created a couple of weeks ago to keep track of everything. So it's like I'm at work kind of. I tag things, we write up, kind of, I don't know if we do user stories in it, but that's how we keep track of stuff. We treat it like it's we organize it. We have 3 simple rows in it, like our backlog, in progress, and done. Mm-hmm. Everything I do, I upload on whatever problem I'm working on, and then we add notes and feedback from there. And we keep in touch, every day, like communicating too. That's super important.
So how do you decide, I guess, then, maybe you should just give an example, right? Where it was, hey, this is a thing that I either was told I needed to learn, or this is a thing that I told him I wanted to learn. And then what's your process going all the way through it for, getting to the point where you feel like, now I've mastered this?
That's a good question. You want to share some of that, Joel?
I think you can share, then I will give a more technical answer.
In terms of why I'm kind of going back and learning, the computer science sort of side of things, it's because I feel like it's important, to become a better programmer. Like, it's not something I don't want to know how to do. It's, so I feel like I'll, have some more respect for myself for doing it, but also it gives me insight into, designing better applications and making decisions in a better thought process. So I guess I've always known for a while that that's something that I want to do, and that's important, right? It's not there for no reason, right? Also, it does open up more opportunities. The better you can perform at things, and I think it just makes you a better programmer all around. How we communicate that was, basically I said, this is what I'm looking to do. This is what I've done, and can you help me get there? Right. And then Joao kind of comes up with the curriculum from, we're starting like the very beginning, like what's an array, how is it, how is it stored in memory and stuff like that, and just going from the very beginning all the way up, like through wherever we're going to be.
Right.
Yeah,
so I think you're going to answer the question I'm going to ask. So go ahead.
One great way to assess his skills is testing him. And there are many ways to do that. I can ask him to write about the topic, and I can evaluate what he knows about that. I can give him multiple choice questions to him and see what he gets right. I can give him like lead code exercises to see what he knows, and so there I collect data from him to know what he's strong, what he's weaker. And another important component in this journey is to start really mastering the core concepts, because you may say like, oh, okay, arrays, this is so easy, so basic, I know, but there are like really tricky, things about concepts that sometimes we move too fast and we just don't know, and when we are problem solving or even designing an app, an application, these things, these basic fundamental core things, they are important. What kind of data structure am I going to use to design this application? There are trade-offs that you make, and you need to understand that.
Yeah. I think the trade-offs part of it, being able to start thinking that way, is like a quality of like a more mature programmer, right? And that's sort of where I want to be. But going back to some of the things that I think help us learn, like, so we don't just be like, okay, how do you memorize this algorithm, whatever, and the time space complexity. Like, I'll write about like every line about what each line of the code does, why we would do it, why we might not do it. And then something else that we did was like, he's like, okay, I think I was having trouble like understanding something like pretty basic. It was like move zeros or whatever. So what the exercise was like, all right, build like a visualize that app. And so I went and just built like a basic React app for moving zeros, and going through that process, like, and having to integrate that code into something with UI made me really start to think about each step a little bit more, and like sort of nailed down my thinking on different concepts. Another thing we do is we try to cluster problems together, so we're relating certain concepts or certain patterns to each other. So I guess we can just like make it easier to understand more complex problems that way. So it's not focusing in like, okay, this problem did this, this, and this. It's like, okay, we're moving something to the end of the array, we're deleting it. There's a certain way that we can do this, right? So
yeah, we start to see the patterns.
Yeah.
And how problems connect. This is also really important in learning and in problem solving. When you are solving a problem, it's good to try to think of similar problems you solved before. This really helps.
And also create new problems, like create a variation of a problem with the concept, right? Write your own problems. That's very helpful.
Yes, that's some exercise.
So I want to back up and kind of go up a level here, which is kind of the question I was asking initially. So let's say Manny says, "Hey, I want to get better at computer science concepts," right? And then maybe you have some back and forth, and you figure out exactly what areas Manny needs to learn about. So then, Joao, you're putting exercises and other things into this Trello board, and then maybe you have discussions about what any of that means, and then you just kind of work through it and do evaluations and things like that, all back and forth, either through the Trello board or whatever other means you have for communicating. I mean, is that more or less what it looks like?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, a lot of it's like, here's some theory, here's some problems, review the theory, do the problems, and then we'll talk about it. So it's a lot of it is still very self-directed, I think, because that's like such an important skill as a developer, right? Is to be able to take something that you're not quite sure about, read about it, and be able to apply it to something new, right? And so I think we're reinforcing that skill a lot. That's just important to be able to grow as a developer. So I think that's generally how our flow is, right? And then we get together and we'll discuss the problems. And if I have an issue with something or a concept, then we'll communicate by notes on Trello or things like that. So,
yeah, there are strategies that he's learning to learn better. Okay, so there are scientific backed up methods to learn better. For example, there is a thing in cognitive science that's a forgetting curve. When we learn something, we start to forget it, hours after it. And if we don't reinforce this learning, we just end up like not learning, just with a trace of memory. And there's another component that we use is Anki. I don't know if you guys know Anki. It's an app.
No. Nope, I don't know that one.
So Anki has an algo that try to combat this forgetting curve. And you put information in there, like let's suppose he's learning a pattern in coding. And then Anki shows him from time to time, and there is an algo behind. Okay, so it's not like random or I'm going to review tomorrow, or I don't know, 1 week from now. No, Anki does this for you. So Anki will show you when you need to be reminded of that. So this gets into your long-term memory.
Yeah, so you don't have to worry about so much about what you're going to study, as you kind of can trust the algorithm. It's like based off of the difficulty of the problem, it will show up. Like, say you said it was easy, right? It might show up again in 7 days. If it's medium, it might show up in 4. If it's hard, maybe it shows up in 2 days. And if it's very hard, you might review it again in an hour. So by going through that like its algorithm that it has, it sort of prevents you from studying the same stuff that you're already good in and sort of tricking yourself into thinking that you're learning because you can already answer the easy stuff, and sort of forces you to deal with the harder problems that you think are hard, which I think is super important, not to waste time.
So what was the name of that app again?
Manny, do you want to say?
ANKI.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, it's pretty big in Brazil, isn't it, Joel? People use that out there.
Flashcards app. Okay.
Yeah, there are many types of cards.
Yeah,
like you can type in. So for coding, it's great, and there are a lot of variations of cards and ways to study there. Some also, inside Enki, there are more effective ways to learn too. Like you start to drill down on learning, and there are many strategies that are very interesting. And as Manny was saying, here in Brazil, the educational system is very focused on testing. So this, I think, ends up making people, students, and also investing in new ways to learn for testing, and to combat this kind of effects like forgetfulness, to forget something. And I think this also was an important component in my journey to teach.
AJ, do you have anything else you want to dive into? Because I've got more questions, but I'm going to change direction again.
Not right now.
Okay. So I guess the next question is, and I don't know. Well, I'll just ask the question instead of giving all the caveats and background. So let's say that somebody is newish, or maybe they're feeling stuck like Manny was, right? It's okay. I can do my job, but I want to get better. How do you go about finding a mentor, right? I mean, you use Code Mentor, but yeah, how do you decide whether it's Code Mentor or something else? How do you find somebody, and how do you decide that they're a good fit for you?
Okay, I will give my answer. Then I think it's interesting to Manny also to give his answer. I think it is kind of a open problem that still needs to be solved more effectively. There are platforms like Code Mentor, but as Manny said, there are people who don't actually have so much experience in mentoring or teaching, so they end up doing giving him too advanced concept to learn, and he was not prepared. So as I said, there is not a recipe, that okay, just follow these steps like an algo that then you find a mentor.
Yeah. So for me, looking for someone, I knew I was looking for a long-term mentorship, someone who would be willing to go deep with me into problems and work with me through my struggles, and not write me off just because I wasn't great at something the first time we did it. So that's what I was looking for. And I was, interviewing people. I was like, look, I'm paying money for this. I'm going to get somebody I want. Right. So I think I got super lucky because Joao was the second person I worked with. And the first person was just not, I could tell they didn't care about my progress. Right. They just were there to collect their money and teach me something. And then whatever. Right. I mean, that's the feeling that I got. I was I don't want to work with this person. It's not worth my time or my money.
So it sounds like you knew what you wanted, which I think is kind of the first step. And so, so then you decided I don't know if we got into this, but what made you decide to go to Code Mentor as opposed to, I don't know, going to users group or, finding another?
Because that's the only thing that I knew.
Okay.
I didn't know anywhere else to find anybody.
Now, on the other end, let's say that somebody's put in a position where they are mentoring, right? Maybe not by choice, right? So they don't go to Code Mentor and say, hey, make me a mentor, but they're, maybe they have some junior programmer at work that they need to help bring along or something like that. What recommendations do you have on the other end to be a good mentor to them?
First, have structure, like try to develop a plan and talk to your mentee and see what he thinks. It needs to be very personalized. So also monitor the progress, have some kind of system to manage your mentee, such as a Kanban board, and give him exercises. This is really important. Have like great high quality content to give him to study. Like filter the content to make him be able to learn the concepts, and have like regular feedback, have excellent communication, have an open communication with your mentee. And basically, I would say these components.
Sounds good. I'm curious now that you've mentioned this, have content for them to go check out, things like that. Do you I'm just wondering because there's new stuff coming out all the time. Um, Maybe it's not something that I've studied for a while. I mean, I know it and I use it, but I don't, So are you going and finding some of this stuff on the fly, right? And then it's like, okay, this is what I need him to be able to, right? So then you evaluate it and give it out, or do you have like a list of resources that you like to just send people to?
Mhm. Yeah, both happens. Some of the things I already curated because I have been there before, and I know that it's good quality and I can share with him. But sometimes it's such a specific topic, that I need to filter, and I try to find the content, or if it's something that I can't find, I in the meeting on the lessons that we do together, I try to teach him. One thing that I also like is when mentoring, it's the Socratic method, like asking questions when he's doing like a problem, instead of like giving him the answer, asking questions for him to try to find the answer by himself. This is important also in mentoring.
Right.
I think the most important thing, like if somebody wants to really get serious mentorship, I think you really have to first like understand that the person who's mentoring you is like giving you their time and be respectful of that and um, do what they've suggested that you do and be, no matter how good the curriculum might be or how many problems or how awesome Joao might be at teaching others, like it's up to me to get better, right? I have to put in the work and I have to work through difficult things and I get as much out of it as I put into it. And then that's so important. If somebody's not ready to like really do that and make it like a priority in their life, like for example, like I get up, go to work 8 to 5, 8 to 6, uh, go to the gym after work, get home at like 7:30. I'm usually in bed by 10. I got 2.5 hours to do stuff. And I can say, all right, I can sit here and fiddle around on my phone for 2 hours, or I can spend the rest of the night like spending the time I can to learn. Those are some sacrifices that you have to be able to make too, is like managing your time and putting in the effort. It's so important.
Yes, indeed. Manny is almost an outlier in that he really is motivated and puts a lot of effort. As I said, I have helped many people from the world, and there is a spectrum of how the mentees behave, and he's doing great,
Mhm. So that's another thing that I'm wondering about. This is something that I'm trying to get into with JavaScript geniuses or some of the other coaching programs that I have is the time management, things like that. Do you help him with that, Vitor, or is that something that Manny's kind of done on his own?
No, I sometimes if I see that he's struggling with that, like he was spending too much time on a problem, like almost the whole week with just one problem. And then I said to him, no, we have more things to cover. And so let us set a limit of the time you spend doing a problem. Okay. So we set half an hour to 1 hour trying to solve this particular problem. And if he can't, he just moves to the next problem. So yes.
And then I might come back to the next day. But also in that process, like, so this is super important. I think in being able to measure like success, like in a mentorship as like someone being mentored, you have to really be willing to, like, the goal is like to be great, right? I mean, that's actually my goal, to be like one of the best in my profession. That's generally my
Right.
goal in anything that I do. But like, where am I at right now? Am I there? No. Like, it's gonna take a while, right? It's not easy. So like I say, where am I at compared to where I was when I start? And I look back and I'm like, wow, like look at what I didn't even know back then and what I can do today. And that helps keep me motivated. So and even within solving a problem, if I can't get the answer right the first time, if I can get the majority of it, like a super hard problem right, and it's just some small thing, I could say, 3 months ago, I wouldn't even know what to do with this. Now so measuring like your own success like incrementally is super important to keep, so you keep going, you know.
Yeah, makes sense. I think the other end of this though is, and this is something that I'm trying to encourage people to do too, is just, it's like, look, you have your full-time job, or maybe you don't, right? Maybe you're between jobs, or maybe you're, a contractor and you have a 30-hour, whatever, right? But you have your work. And so then you're doing this outside of work, right? You're doing this as an effort to become better. But yeah, your employer isn't paying you for the time you put in on this stuff. So my question to you, Manny, is how do you manage that time? Like, how do you figure out how to fit that in? And is that something that Joao helped you with as part of the mentorship? Or is that something that you've just always done or been good at or approached in that way?
I wouldn't say that I've necessarily always been good at it, but when we started doing this, I really had to look at my time, right?
Hmm.
And it's basically just saying, okay, if I really want to do this, like, what's more important to me, right? Coming home and goofing around and watching TV, or going out, or like, is getting better more important, right? So it's really about priorities and what I make most important, right? And right now, the things that I make most important for the time that I have are like my physical health and learning, right?
Right.
So it's really just sort of like making that decision and say, this is what I'm going to make most important in my life, and
Right.
just, you know,
And
believing that it will lead to success.
just an interesting thing that I just remembered is that learning is also a great, I mean, for an organization, making employees to learn, giving opportunities to learn is a great mechanism for retention, to keep employees.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's your trick then, Manny? I'm curious. How do you decide when you're going to do this work? And how do you make it fit in? Because and I don't know what your situation is. We didn't talk about this at all, leading in, whether you have kids, or because I wind up, my wife has a job, right? I have 5 kids. My 18-year-old doesn't have his driver's license. My 17-year-old is getting hers, right? But that means I have to drive her to and from the driver's license stuff. My 15-year-old has stuff going on. And so I'm driving them around. I'm doing all this other extra stuff, right? So how do you, and I have my own ways of doing this, but I'm curious what your solution is, right? So given where you're at with your life, how do you make it fit with everything else that you may be doing?
So fortunately, I don't know if that's unfortunate. Right now, like, I don't have like any other responsibilities but to myself.
Okay.
So I can be selfish with my time. And so part of that, like, I was been divorced for a couple of years now, and I've thought about, like, looking for other relationships, and I've dated a little bit. But like right now, like, I make that kind of that sacrifice in terms of like, okay, I know I don't necessarily have the time for someone else. So if I'm going to get where I want to be, I sort of have to like take this time to be a little selfish with my time. And it maybe doesn't sound like the best way to live, but it's something I'm doing right now, because I am fortunate enough to have the time that I have,
Right.
after work to do it. And I can be consistent, especially on the weekends. I get a lot of stuff done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I want to make a comment also about that. I
Yeah.
have a mentor, like dads and people who have families, and it's of course their time is shorter, but the thing is better to space your time. If you can study just a little bit
Yeah.
every day, is better than just cram everything in one day. So consistency and discipline is very important. Doesn't matter if
Yeah.
you have like a lot of stuff with family or whatever. If you can spread things and have discipline, you're going to progress too. So,
Hmm.
uh,
Yeah.
of course.
I
Yeah.
want to ask a question about that too, because I've heard the opposite, and that's how I tend to feel, is that rather than having consistent do something every day, to just binge, but semi consistently, like, binge once a week or something like that, where you just go all in, really focus, get into flow, rather than just doing little bits here and there, get into flow where I'm actually working through, a full project. Anyway, so I've heard people say that approach, and I think maybe it's more the ADHD community that says that, because we're terrible at consistency of any kind. Like, we don't even know what day of the week it is or time it is or what's going on. We have the now versus not now brain, and if it's now, we're binging on it, and if it's not now, we'll do it sometime. But what are your thoughts on that? Do you have pushback on that? Do you think, like, no, we really would be better off with the consistency and smaller chunks, or what?
Yes, this strategy may work for some scenarios, but it's more for short term, and we are working here for long term.
Yeah.
So you can cram and learn, but then like 15 days later, you forgot almost all, like a lot of things. But when you spread things, because of reinforcement learning, this is also a concept in artificial intelligence. When you reinforce something, you also reinforce your synapses, right? And because this is actually a physical learning is physical. If you look at your brain, uh, you can see that. So by spreading out, you keep reinforcing the concepts, and then you learn for long term. But if you have like some test, and it's near, and you have to learn, and you have just a short amount of time, then cramming might work. So it
Yeah.
depends of the scenario.
Yeah, and I do understand that flow aspect of it. When I can spend like on Saturday is like my most free day. When I could spend like 3 or 4 hours like uninterrupted, yeah, I get way more done. I have way more progress. If I could do that every single day, like if I could binge every day, I would. Like, but like I think the thing about the consistency part is it's important to not like just because things aren't perfect, like I can't do what I want to do every day, doesn't mean I shouldn't try to do something. And I think that's where the consistency comes in. Is like working through a process and showing up even when it's not perfect, right? Like it's
Yeah.
not the ideal situation because it never really will be because life is life. And then take advantage of the times when I can do more, but never stop doing something because I can't do it exactly the way that I want.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
just
and
want to.
not.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, yes, I was going to say just not compare yourself with others, like, oh, many can study like 3 hours a day. Oh, I can't, so I'm not going to try, you have to compare yourself with yourself, your progress. That's also an important aspect of.
Yeah. I just want to jump in because I think as we talk through this, and I'm scrolling through Audible on my phone because there's a book that I read that kind of outlines the way that I approach things. And there are a few ways that I deal with this. One of them is that I get up earlier than the rest of my family, right? So we get up at 6, we read scriptures, we get the kids dressed and ready to go to school. Depending on what's going on with my wife and her job, because my wife works at the school that my 2 younger kids attend. And so if she had to go in at 4, because she's the lunch director there, so if she gets a food delivery, she doesn't take the kids. But otherwise, she'll take them with her if she's leaving at like 5:30 or something. Um, anyway, so that's kind of how the morning goes. But what I do for a lot of this stuff, and it's the same thing for working out or the other stuff that I do, right? So I'll get up at 5 and go for a run, and then I'll come back and I read 10 pages every day. That's the 75 hard thing. But for the rest of it, so AJ's talking about, sometimes it helps just to be able to, kind of binge into some of this stuff. And sometimes all you can get is like 10 minutes to just pick up a concept. And I think both of those are effective. I think the more often and more time you put into immersing yourself in this stuff, the better off you are, because it'll help you retain it. It helps you kind of get back into the mode of learning this stuff. And anyway, I'll find the book and I'll put a link up to it. But basically what they recommend is that's what it's called. It's called The 12-Week Year is the book, and I didn't find it in here, it just kinda came into my head. Anyway, it's the 12-Week Year, and they have a system for this where you put up, like, a 3 or 4-hour block. You have a few of those every week that you plan in, right? And so, if you have to do work, a lot of times you're planning that 3 or 4-hour block to just do work, right? But you could plan that into, I need to learn this concept. I need to master this thing. And so you could put that in. And it's the same idea, right? In order to be able to get real progress, sometimes you need that. The other ones that or the other things that are in there that I really like, one of them is a weekly accountability call or weekly accountability meeting. They call it a WAM meeting. And so what you do is you commit to what you're going to do for the week every week in your WAM call, and then you went in the next WAM call, you report on what you said you were going to do, and then you make new commitments. And for me, it kills me off when I say, "Oh, I said I was going to do these 3 things and I only did 1." And you're only given enough time to say whether or not you did it. You're not given enough time to say, "And it was because my kids this and my wife this and, you know,
Yeah.
dog this, and so I didn't do it." No, it's just, "No, I didn't do it." And yeah. Anyway, and I think that's part of the nice thing about having a mentor or somebody to go to too, is you have that level of accountability. Well, did you do it? No. Okay. Well, what are we going to do to make sure you're doing it? Right? Because yeah, otherwise it's a waste of money.
Yeah.
Anyway, I want to go into just a little bit of this other stuff. So, it says mentoring, friendship, and personal growth. So, it sounds like this started out as a mentorship relationship, and it sounds like now you guys are like good friends. How does that affect things? Like, how does that change the situation?
Well, yeah. So it changes it a lot. So, I mean, Joao and I have the unique experience of like living in 2 different countries, but meeting. And this kind of goes to the friendship part. So back in, my dad, married a Brazilian woman. He lived in a town called Salto. And in June, he had gotten sick with some lung issues. And then in July, he actually unfortunately passed away.
Oh, I'm
And
sorry to hear that.
yeah, it was a tough time, and that's actually when we were able to meet because I went down to Brazil for the funeral, and then Joao came over to my house down there, um, and had, like, coffee with me, um, and my mom down there, and, like, we all kinda bonded in that way, and it was great to have a friend and also just be able to communicate that because I think it was pretty soon, like, after we started the mentor stuff that, like, when my dad got sick, right? And he was sick for about a month, I think.
Mhm.
And we still met and pushed through that time. And I'm really glad that I had someone there to keep me accountable because that would be the time where I would be most likely to like be like, I can't handle this. But actually it gave me some solace and some focus and purpose to keep going. And and even sort of think about like I'm doing this for my dad in some ways 'cause I know that he would, be proud that I was taking these steps.
right?
So
Yes, I think about the friendship. For us, it helped us. It made our connection stronger. And but you have to keep it professional, right? It's not because he's my friend that he can like slack, on things, and I will make his life easier. No, I'm going to actually make it even harder now that I like him. So I think that's an important aspect of it.
there's a level of trust there too. I mean, I think we actually have pretty similar personalities and we think about things the same. So when we communicate, it's pretty easy. I think we both listen to each other fairly well, which makes it nice and like genuinely care about each other. So um, it's not just transactional. It's actually like we're in this together. Let's learn from each other, become better people, better friends, and that's like super motivating. Like I don't want to, let Joel down because he is my friend. Like
Uh-huh.
there's that built in like, yeah, no, I'm not gonna just like disappear. So yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So as far as the personal growth thing goes, then I mean, is this because it says mentoring and personal growth, well, mentoring, friendship, and personal growth were kind of the ideas we were talking about. And I think we talked a lot about the personal growth as part of the mentoring, but is there anything else to that beyond your mentorship and friendship relationship?
Mhm. Yeah, I think one of the interesting things that we do in our mentorship for related to coding is our approach to solving problems. So we have like a structure that we base on Polya. He was a famous mathematician and educator,
Hmm.
and he had like a four-step procedure to solve problems. And we frame usually when we are doing like lead code and this kind of exercise. First, I try to make him deeply understand the problem. Okay, so think about the input, the output, about the restrictions. Try to make analogies. Try to, as I said before, think of similar problems, um, so that you truly understand. Then the next step would be to create a plan to solve. Then you can like make like uh, like pseudocode, in this step.
Hmm.
You don't need to start like coding. Just write some comments. Okay, I have to create like I have to use a hash map. Then I have to do like some kind of loop, and then and then you after that you start coding, and then you review what you did to
Yeah.
make sure if you didn't make any flaws and gaps. And so I also think that it's something interesting for the listeners.
Yeah, I think doing it that way, the coding is actually the easy part. Once you kind of figure out how to
Right.
solve the problem, you can write it out. It's like, okay, I just need to write the code that does this,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah, and Polya has a book. I have it here. uh, it's how to solve it. It's a great book.
Oh, nice. I'm wondering if that's on Amazon or something. Who's the author?
It's George Polya. It's on Amazon. It's a very famous book, and it inspired many programmers, like famous programmers, like Donald Knuth. You know,
Right. So is it a programming book or
no, no, it's a problem-solving book. But he
okay.
was a mathematician.
Okay. Yeah. Polia. Forward by John Conway.
Yeah, John Connor was also a famous computer scientist. He
Right.
created the Game of Life.
Game of Life. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to put an Amazon affiliate link into the comments on various streaming platforms. But yeah, it was definitely easy to find. All right. Well, is there anything else that we want to dive into? I think this was really just fascinating to get into as far as how to find a mentor, what to expect, how to work through it, how to kind of get what you want. But yeah, is there anything else that people ought to know?
About mentoring, problem solving in general. Yeah, there are a lot of things that we could talk, but the show has a time limit, right? But this is, like you said, a fascinating topic. I can keep talking about this like for many hours, and there are a lot of intersections with AI and how, especially generative AI, how large language model learns uh, and how humans learn. Like we just need a few examples to learn, right? Many can, like, if he solves like 3 exercises, then he can generalizes to new problems. But a large language model needs to see like millions of examples. So AI still has this limitation over our type of learning, right?
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to come back in a year and see where we're at actually
Yeah.
from this point on, and see where the growth is, what we're working on.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully not the same exact stuff, but we'll see, right? Let's see how things go.
Yeah. How long have you guys been working together?
I think April, the beginning of April.
Okay.
So 4
All
months.
right. Well,
5 months, yeah.
let's go ahead and roll into the picks section of the show. And picks is just shout outs about whatever. So I'll go ahead and let AJ go first. I am kind of considering, before we do this, limiting everybody to just a couple of minutes to just kind of say what you're picking and give a really brief summary as to why. Um, I've had a few people get back to me saying that some of the picks are long winded, and I'm gonna let Dan and Steve know that as well. But yeah, just let people know what cool stuff's out there, and then if they want to know more, they can go check it out themselves. But anyway, AJ, what are your picks?
Well, not the people that don't like my long-winded raves. So Apple earbuds, the 3.5 millimeter earbuds, are absolutely magical, and I don't understand why no one else has made anything like them. It seems like a commodity product that'd be super simple. There's nothing particularly special about them, despite the fact that I called them magical. I mean, they're just like the normal earbuds we had in the 90s, except with a better shape and without and not the silicone ones that actually you have to stick in your ear, but they just fit in your ear more nicely, and they have, the bare minimum speakers that you need for quality. I don't think that they're, anything super special, but anyway, Apple, of course, no longer sells them. They moved on to the Lightning connector, and now they're moving on to the USB-C connector. And I'm sure they just like to get rid of them entirely, because why sell someone a product that costs $5 that you sell for $30 when you can sell them a product that costs $10 and you sell for $300? But I'm stocking up on them. I'm getting on eBay and I'm getting all I can, because eventually after several years they break. And so I've bought probably 10 pair over the years, and I'm going to buy another 10 more. I'm going to get them all, because I just love them. They're simple, they sound good, they fit in the ear nicely, and I don't like the wireless ones. The volume's never there. The ones that have the silicone tips, it just kind of feels weird. So Apple, the old school Apple earpods, earpods after earpods. And then the other thing, while I'm fanboying out on Apple, is Swift UI. I wish that we had a framework like Swift UI. It seems like Swift UI is what React people think that they're doing. Like if you hear the words, like if I was to listen to the conference talk with my eyes closed, it sounds like they're talking about React. Declarative UI. Don't worry about state updates. I've never met a React developer that's not totally bogged down with bugs and state updates. But Swift UI, and again, I'm looking at a conference talk, but it looks so clean. And I'm gonna GPT and me, we're gonna build an app together. I'm gonna do it. I finally got past the hello world. Every time I've ever opened Xcode, there's always some problem. Number one, it's overwhelming with like 6 million menus and no clear path to like which one is the one I do to do the thing. But I'm watching some conference talks at Apple, and I find because the way that I have Git configured with SSH keys and some other things, it like failed the initialization process, but I fixed that. I had to add a manual path to GPG, and I had to use a special option with Git for the Apple keychain. But anyway, I got past that, found out that the reason that the app doesn't build is that if you don't have an app icon specified, you don't get an error message like your app icon is wrong. Well, if you have none at all, then it works fine. But if you add an app icon, but there's something wrong about it, you don't get an error message like your app icon was wrong. You just get failed to build, assets don't compile. I got past that. Now I got the Hello World running. So my first iOS app. Woohoo!
All right.
End rave.
Good deal. I'm going to jump in here with a couple of picks. I'm going to start out. I always do a board game pick. The pick I'm going to do this time is Biblios. Biblios card game. Let me look up the Board Game Geek weight here real quick. But basically what you're doing is you get 5 cards in front of you. You get to keep one. You get to put one into the auction pile, and then you flip the other 3 over, and or however many other players there are, you flip that many over, and they get to pick one in turn. Essentially what you're trying to do is and they're dice. So some of the cards let you change the number on the dice, and the number on top of the dice that you win give you the points. And you're trying to get the most points at the end of the game. And so effectively what you're trying to do is you're trying to make sure that you have more of whatever color than anyone else so that you can win that colored die. And there are 3 of them that have, I think, 11 cards, and then there are 2 of them that have like 25 cards. And so anyway, you have to have at least 13 or at least 6 to guarantee that you have the most. But if there's a multiplicity of people having that color cards, then you have to have as many. So that's kind of the game. 30 minutes, board game weight 1.68, which means casual gamers are likely able to enjoy this game and not get bogged down in the complexity. Anyway, it was a fun game. Played it with my buddies on Wednesday, which is when I get together for that. So I'm going to pick that. A couple of other things that I am getting into or enjoying. One of them is I went to the doctor, and it turns out that my blood sugar is high again. I'm diabetic, for those who don't know. And in the past, I've had to test my blood sugar by pricking my finger and then bleeding on a test strip. And this time the doctor actually prescribed me, and I'm wearing a sweatshirt, otherwise I'd show you on camera, but I've got this little thing on my arm that just continuously monitors my blood sugar. It's Libre 3 is the type. I can't remember the brand. Anyway, it's awesome. It's been really nice because then I eat something and then I can see what it does to my blood sugar, which is cool. So I'm going to pick that. And then lastly, with my workouts, I've been using Training Peaks with my Garmin watch. And what Training Peaks does is you can put your workouts in. What I've done is you can buy training plans. And so I have a training plan in there for running, so I can go and do a marathon. And I just put a marathon date in for a marathon I want to go run. I'm not sure if I'm actually going to go run that marathon just because money's been tight. I'm between contracts right now, and so I'm not sure that I want to spend the money to travel or register for the race, which is like $100. So I might just run. There's a running trail behind my house that runs down toward the lake and then all the way up into Salt Lake. And so I might just run my own marathon. But anyway, Training Peaks is terrific. And so I just put the training program in, and then I just do whatever my system says to do. And I just barely added a weightlifting one. And it's all body weight stuff, right? Because again, as much as I love going to the gym and as much as I hate the crowds at the gym, again, I'm just cutting anything I don't have to spend. So this is all body weight exercises, right? It's squats, push-ups, pull-ups. Anyway, so the marathon plan, I think, cost me like $40 or $50 several years ago. The weightlifting plan cost me $20 when I bought it. And so I just plug it in and I just do whatever it says to do. And the only equipment that it requires you to have is you have to have essentially a stopwatch, so you know how long, because you rest 30 seconds between each set, and a pull-up bar, which I already have. So anyway, that's the stuff. And then go check out javascriptgeniuses.com. Manny, what are your picks?
Yeah, so for a book, one of my favorite musicians is Jaco Pastorius, and he bass player. And there's a book called The Extraordinary and Tragic Life of Jaco Pastorius. He's someone who died, I think, like in '86, but he had like a tremendous influence on the electric bass guitar and just where like music was heading at that point. And it's just a fascinating story about like how crazy his life was and how short it was. So I recommend that book if anybody's interested in maybe not as well-known musician that you're interested in knowing the life about. There is another book I've been reading called Heaven and Hell, and it's about the development of the concept of the afterlife, and how it has sort of changed like throughout history, where it comes from, like looking at through the lens of different cultures. I kind of got into that because my dad just passed away, so I've been thinking about a lot about that. And then I guess, can I recommend a video game?
Yeah, anything you want.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, I'm sure it's been recommended, but Baldur's Gate 3, I still play that. It's probably one of my favorite games of all time.
Isn't that an older game?
No, it's new. It came out last year.
Oh, okay.
Just fantastic. So that's it.
Cool. Joao, what are your picks?
Yeah. Okay, for productivity, a cursor, IDE, and also
hearing about that. Is it cool?
Yeah, it's interesting. It can handle multiple files. It creates embeds of the files, and then it can search and generate code at different files. It's an interesting idea. I think it's fun to play with for productivity. And the second one is Perplexity AI. It's also an interesting app that makes search with generative AI. Because generative AI has this problem of hallucination, right? Inventing things. And Perplexity tries to solve it with giving sources of the information made. And for learning, I recommend Anki. I think it's great. Also, there's a book that's called The ABCs of How We Learn. It's from Stanford, but it's for the general public. It's also great. Has 26 scientific proven strategies to learn. What else? And for coding, LeetCode. I think it's great to test yourself, to make you get out of your comfort zone. And I think that's it.
Awesome. On the LeetCode pick, I'm just going to throw it out there. Our episode from last week that we recorded, I think it was last week. It might have been 2 weeks ago, but we recorded with a LeetCode meetup in New York, where they talk about how to figure out the solutions to LeetCode, and yeah, they get together and make themselves better at this stuff. So anyway, if you're looking for that, just go look an episode or two back. All right. If people want to check in with you guys or connect in some way, how do they find you online? Manny, why don't you go first again?
Well, you won't find me on social media because like I withdrew from that a couple years ago, but I still do use email. So you can reach me at Manny. It's my first name, MANNY .Hagman, HAGMAN @gmail.com. That's the best way to get in touch with me.
Awesome.
The only way.
How about you, Joao?
Yeah, you can find me on Code Mentor or LinkedIn. Just search my name. And also alwaysmith.tech.
Very cool. Yeah. While we were talking, I signed up on Code Mentor. So
cool.
All right.
Same, actually.
You what?
I said same, actually.
Yeah.
I was checking it out. I already had an account from some years ago, but never actually got past the welcome.
All right. Good deal. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. Till next time, folks. Max out.